It's time to chill out and get ready for a mediocre Q&A live stream. If you're old enough, grab yourself your favorite adult beverage, and if you're not, stick with apple juice. Put your feet up and relax. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. And now let's cue up the intro. What is up, everybody? Let's see if I can do this right. If I can figure out how to do this. Let's remove that. There we go. So welcome to the HVACR videos live stream. Got someone new sitting next to me on the other side. That's Adrian from Reliable HVACR. It is the R on your name, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
refrigeration.
Yeah. So Adrian has a YouTube channel and posts on Instagram. You do stuff on Facebook too?
Trying to kind of recycle some stuff up on there.
So let me ask you this. Can I ask you how old you are?
I'm 35.
35. Okay, so you're not that much younger than me. I'm 40, or I'm going to be 40 this year. Like, have you ever been active on Facebook?
Back when it was like, I guess, popular when it started.
Okay.
And tried it out for business and stuff, you know.
Yeah, I'm still pretty active on Facebook, but it's probably old school. That's why I was asking you how old you were, because like when I run into a lot of people, like my sister, who's 10 or 15 years younger than me, is HVR stands for Randy. Adam, stop with the super chats, man. Thank you, though. That's cool. Adam does that to distract me because he knows that it like throws me off when I see a super chat from Adam, so it just messes everything up. But yeah, so a little different tonight. I have a guest on. That's probably why I'm a little bit like not in my element, because it's a little different. But I've been trying to do different stuff lately. So Adrian and I actually got to do an interview at the Parker Sporland booth at AHR, but we were experiencing problems with the live streaming stuff, and it actually wasn't live. So that was kind of a bummer. So I just figured, hey, why not have him on, give him an opportunity to come on here. And I'm going to go through a couple questions as usual. And then I got a couple questions for Adrian. So, but as far as where everybody can find your information, it's Reliable HVACR on YouTube and Instagram are your two main platforms?
Main platforms, trying out TikTok and Facebook.
Okay. Cool. So I'm sure you can just look that up and find Ohms Electrical. Thank you very much for that super chat. I really appreciate it, man. Yeah, that is a pretty cool name too. Ohms Electrical. That's pretty unique. All right. So got a couple things I want to talk about as usual. Definitely want to get to the chat questions you guys have or comments or things you want to ask for myself or Adrian. Do me a favor, put your comments or your questions in caps lock. It helps me to see and understand. Just like Jason Johnson said, just put them in caps lock. It definitely helps it out. Okay. Lots of great people in the chat right now. Look at Kraus is in here. A lot of the normals, Chipmunk, Mike B, Weaver, LED Handyman, man, lots of great people in here. This is awesome. Lots of really, really cool people. Everything HVACR. That's Steve, right? Yeah, I'm almost positive that's Steve. Yeah. That's cool. So lots of great people. You know, the HVAC community is pretty cool. We got a pretty good group of friends, and I feel like lately, more so than ever, we've been getting closer and closer. And I think that's pretty cool. I definitely think, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What were you going to say?
Oh, I said, like, to me, I don't think I can really talk shop locally too much. And if I do, it's always the older guys that are not about doing things the right way or anything like that. It's whatever they were raised on.
Yeah.
It's cool to go online, like to Instagram or YouTube, even in the comments, and talk to guys that actually do or care about their work and either, you know, give you tips. You know, it goes both ways. Like I try to show what I do at work, but then I get people in the comments that actually correct some of the stuff or tell me how to do things better. And it's helpful for sure.
Yeah, it is. And I got to give props to, you know, there's always been people being friends and, you know, little groups. Cause that's how I met the overtime guys, Adam, Joe, and Bill, you know, was because I used to watch their live streams when it was on a previous platform and we all got to know each other. But I will say that I got to give props to Ben Poole from HVAC Tactical because Ben is doing a great job bringing the industry together, especially on Instagram. He's cross-platform bringing people together too. We were both at the Tactical Awards, and that was really cool. It was really neat. Were you at the awards the previous year? No, you weren't, right?
No, because I missed my flight that time.
Yeah. That was in Vegas at AHR, but that was the first in-person Tactical Awards, and it was awesome. And then the second one was even better. So it was really cool. It was definitely a fun experience. I saw a question on here, and this is a really subjective question. First off, someone says, where's the timestamps on my videos? I honestly haven't had a chance to do those. You know, it's one of those things that if you realize how difficult it is to do timestamps, I was having my daughter help me for a while, but she's been really busy with school. You have to have your editing program auto generate timestamps, and then you have to go through and edit them because they're never correct. And then for me, I make longer form videos. So already when I edit a video, whatever the length is, I've at least watched that video 3 times. So I get kind of sick of hearing myself. But then when I'm doing the timestamps, I got to go and rewatch it again. So it adds a 4th time and then sit there and type everything out. It's kind of a pain in the butt. So I like doing them and I get it. I know that people appreciate them, but it's just been kind of a pain in the butt. And actually, you know what? I'm also talking about captions. Timestamps and captions are 2 different things, but they kind of go hand in hand. Timestamps is when I go find the cool moments in the video and give it a time, but it's the same thing. You run into like, go ahead.
I kind of stopped doing that for a while too. I mean, I know it's helpful and everything, but it's a lot of extra work to do after your video's like up already.
Yeah. And then YouTube, for people that don't know that are watching right now, YouTube has what they call the YouTube best practices, and they want you to follow these so that way you make the algorithm happy and blah, 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 all this different stuff. And it just sometimes they add some of the most annoying requirements or things that you should do, and it's like it seriously takes so much time sometimes. And again, I get it, like, and I know I was mixing up captions and timestamps, but both of them are actually really important because some people like timestamps to be able to find a certain moment in the video. But then as far as captions go too, captions are the worst. But I get it though, because for the hearing impaired, which I actually do have a few deaf people that are regular viewers of my videos. So like, I get it, you know, and I still have the auto generated captions from YouTube, but those are completely incorrect. So, so Adrian, when it comes to the industry, what got you into the industry?
Okay. So basically my dad got me into it.
Okay.
Like most people, they get into the trade. I think they either have a, you know, their dad's into it or a relative of some sort that gets them into it. The only thing with me is my dad does not do HVAC. He's you know, what we call like the hot side in the restaurant. So he does like fryers and steamers, grills, all that stuff. And he had started his own company, and then I went as a helper. So I used to work on the weekends because I had another job, and I used to work on the weekends with him, you know, up early in the morning, driving out to any like side jobs he had collected when he started. And then yeah, I started as a helper. So I was working on grills and stuff when I started, and I wasn't super into it. And then he's like, well, I want to be like an all-in-one company. I don't want them calling somebody else to do another part of the restaurant, you know, and have two companies in there.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm going to need somebody to do refrigeration and AC work and all that stuff. So I was like, okay, found a school, like a college down here that did it. So I went to school for it. I got basically an associate's degree for it because I was already going to school for something else. I was going for like electrical engineering at that time. And I was like, I'll just switch over because I didn't know what I was going to do. And, you know, like I said, got my degree there, worked as soon as I could. I wanted my license. I got that right away as soon as I was eligible. And we run it together. Basically, he does one side and I do the HVAC side.
Okay. Yeah. See, I came up working for my dad too. Grew up working with him, holding the flashlight.
Yeah.
You know, doing that stuff and getting yelled at. And
that's how you start.
Yeah, that's pretty much how you start, man. I think we all had to, you know, get yelled at. There was one, I was telling this story recently where I can remember the restaurant I was at, where I was at. And I remember my dad, we were working on an AC and he had me hold this low voltage wire and he said, don't let it touch anything. And he walks away and I'm like, I wonder what happens, you know? So I was like, run it. I literally just put it right to the side of the wall and then it shorted out. And then he comes back up and I was like, it accidentally touched. He's like, how did it accidentally? Why he was having me hold a low voltage wire? Like, I still don't understand that. Because like, I think about it, it's a solid wire, right? Nobody needs to hold it. It's everything else is still connected. Literally just pull it and kind of isolate it. Don't touch. It's fine. But I don't know what he was having me do, but
I don't know. My dad's kind of like that too. When I started, you know, I mean, I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't super into it. I was just trying to get, you know, a paycheck and go home. I was really young. So there was a few times where we would walk in together because I was working with him. And then we would start something and he would just randomly leave. And he would be gone for a while and stuff. And then what I noticed, because like the guys that we worked with, they were my uncles. You know, it was a family business. And they're like, oh, yeah, he does that. He does that on purpose. He wants to see what you're going to do. And if you're going to, you know, continue or if you picked up anything. And it's kind of like a little test or whatever.
Right. Yeah. My dad, well, let me ask, well, see, but your dad isn't in the HVACR side, but he kind of is inadvertently. But
yeah,
I grew up learning all the wrong methods. I learned beer can cold. I learned charge by pressures. I learned vacuums weren't needed. And I say this all the time. I'm not faulting my dad. Yeah, it was incorrect, but he wasn't the only person in the industry doing that in the late 80s, early 90s, you know, when I was starting to come up into it. That was still pretty normal. Like a lot of people were that way. And you know, it was that. And then when I would ask him questions and he wouldn't have the answer, that would drive me nuts. He'd be like, ask your instructor, because I was going to school at the same time. And that drove me nuts, you know, because my instructor didn't tell it to me in a way that I understood. And so that actually drove me to want to learn. And message boards were really big to me. HVAC Talk message board was huge to me.
Yeah, I remember those.
That helped me so much, man. You know,
and it continues, and it still happens today. The whole methods, you know, from the past, because I still run into it now. And when I started, you know, in the late 2000s or whatever it was, um, you know, there was other guys that I was supposed to be learning from or working for to get, you know, my to get everything ready for it so I can take my test and have everything in order because you need experience and all that.
Yeah.
And I was like I would in my head, I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but I'm like, this is not the way we're supposed to be doing this.
Yeah.
Because I had went to school and I at least had an understanding of that stuff. Because we did all that recovery, vacuum, you know, they went over all that, and
Yeah.
we had hands on at our school. And then you go out in the field and it's completely different. It's like everybody's using, you know, their own ways, and it's like, um,
Yeah.
it still happens. I ran into some older techs recently, and they're just stubborn on that stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely still, there's a lot of incorrect stuff. And I want to touch on that in a minute too. But there was a question earlier. Someone had asked, what's the best meter? What's the best voltage meter? And that's a real subjective question. I mean, there's so many variables that go into that. What kind of work you're doing, you know, and then there's brand preference. You know, I personally have always been a field piece fan, but there's a time and place for a fluke meter too. So, I mean, it's really, really dependent on what you like, but I'm not knocking any of the other brands. You know, if you like UEI or insert name of whatever meter, so be it, as long as it works. You know, if you're doing refrigeration and air conditioning, I'd say the most important things, especially if you do any kind of heating work, is you want to have, what is it? Millivolts and milliamps. Those are beneficial to you. And then also you want to make sure that your meter has capacitance, current. You know, I worked with my dad coming up, and we had an amp clamp. You had a separate, and it wasn't even digital. It was a analog amp probe, you know, and you would just go up there and the little scale would bounce, doing, 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 because it was like weighted or whatever. So, you know, but you're better off if you can get away with getting a clamp meter that has a clamp on it, whatever works for you. Just buy whatever you can that just max out your budget, like, you know, it within reason, you know, but just spend, you know, whatever brand you decide to go with. Buy the nicer one if you can afford it, because it'll typically have a few more features that you'll like, and you'll probably learn to like things that you don't even know you need. So
Yeah, you just want to research, see what each one has to offer.
Yeah.
I mean, my dad's a fluke guy. I'm a field piece guy myself.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a hot topic sometimes, because I personally got the SC, I think it's like 680 or something like that, the super tall one. And everybody tells me it's too big and this and that, but I like the features that it has.
Yeah.
And I'd rather have them than, you know, not. So that's the one that I go for. But I always tell people, if you want to, or if you have a budget, you know, stick to one or the other. They have, I think, 3 different meters.
Yeah.
In that kind of style, that amp clamp meter.
Yeah.
And whatever fits your budget, and just look at the features. If it does everything you need it to, then go for it. And like I said, my dad does flukes, so he's real stubborn on it. I think I tried to get him a field piece one time, and he was like, "Nah, I can't use this." So he's a fluke guy, and that's perfectly fine. It's whatever, you know, suits your needs and like the kind of work that you do.
100%. And there's so many people out there that say, "Oh, this one sucks." It's whatever you like. It's okay. You know, like, we're not doing scientific work over here. Okay. You know, if we were doing super scientific electrical engineering work, yeah, I'd probably push you towards a really high end fluke that would be stupid expensive. Right. But for what we're doing with the scales that we're working with, there's a good majority of meters out there that'll work just fine. It's just whatever you choose to use, you know. There's lots of different places you can buy it. It just depends, you know. So find the best prices with the qualities that you want. See, I don't have the 680. I used to have those ones. Those are the ones where the head swivels a little bit. I have the 480, which has basically all the features that the 680 does, except for it doesn't have the swivel head and it doesn't have the dual temperature readout. So it only has a single temperature. But again, that's what works for me. Something different works for Adrian. That's fine. You know, like who cares? Like, it's funny when you see some of the groups or arguments people get into, like, "Oh, that meter sucks." It's like, dude, why does it matter what meter he uses? You know?
Yeah, they get so heated on some of that stuff, but it's every tech is different. And the same thing when I show my tools and stuff, my little loadout, I'm like, this works for me. I do troubleshooting and some service work. I don't do, you know, anything else 90% of the time. this is what works for me. And like every tech is different. Your loadout, your tools, your meter, your preference on different things.
Yeah. And you know, there's some things that like I have that, you know, normal service technicians probably don't need to have, because I do buy a few things because I'm making videos and it's like, oh, that'd be cool to have that particular thermal imager because it has a bigger screen, or buying a tablet but that's a whole nother thing. You don't have to buy, like when I put stuff out, you know, when I post a picture, I don't really do a lot of tool stuff, which I'm going to start doing a little bit more. But when I post that stuff, it's not to brag. It's not to say this is the best tools ever. It's just because Adrian knows this. That's probably one of the more common questions you get as a content creator. Show me your tool bag, make a tool bag video. And at first it was weird, but so many people are curious, you know? So again, to each their own. It is what it is. So when it comes to, let me get to a couple questions here that I had on my list before I forget to answer these. So in a recent YouTube short and Instagram reel and just whatever short form video, I made a little comment because I posted a clip of a Hoshizaki ice machine. And I said something like, these are really common issues with the Hoshizakis, and the aero quip fitting was loose and it was leaking. And then it had a bad evaporator. The evaporator plates were bad. So, you know, it's one thing I understand. This is why I don't care for short form content. Unfortunately, we kind of have to do it with YouTube because it's the way that they do things now. You have to do short form to get your content promoted and whatever. So I kind of have to do it. But the problem with short form content is you can't give context, you know? So I make a little clip saying typical Hoshizaki problems, and there's 50 billion questions. That machine's really dirty. That's what caused it. It probably has the wrong size water line. That's what caused it. And everybody has the thing. No, none of those, you know. If I would have made a full video on that, it would have made more sense. No, that machine actually has normal water lines. I did not install the machines, but I've serviced the machine since day one. It's not a cleaning issue that caused the evaporators to go bad. Yes, the machine was dirty. I was actually there to clean it, but then I didn't clean it because the evaporator was ruined and I didn't want to the machine was still working. So I'm like, I'm not going to clean it and cause the evaporators separate more or anything. I'm just going to leave it alone and go from there. But I was very surprised, and I usually don't do this. I usually don't call brands out, but I did call out on Hoshizaki because they told me that it was going to be 8 months to a year for new evaporators. And I have two machines right next to each other that are identical that both need evaporators. And I was pretty blown away. And I don't know if you saw any of my, I don't think I said this in public. The other thing that Hoshizaki said was when they told us that it was going to be 8 months to a year for new evaporators, and they said no guarantees on that either. They said, but we have a solution. We will give you a smaller evaporator that puts out less ice machine capacity under warranty, and you can put it in the machine. And so,
oh, wow.
I went to the customer and I go, this is on you, bud. What do you want to do? And he goes, well, how much less capacity? And I think they said like 6 or 8%, but I guarantee that 6 or 8% is not at summer conditions. I guarantee they're saying 6 or 8% when it's cold and the ice machine actually produces the full 1,600 pounds of ice. On a normal working machine, when it's a 1,600 pounder, that's at perfect conditions. When it gets 115 outside, it's more like 1,000 pounds or 1,200 pounds. Like it reduces capacity big time. So I was kind of blown away that they offered that. And so I put that on the customer. I said, here, you deal with this. You see what you tell me what you want. I'm not even going to get involved in that one. Like I was pretty blown away, but you know, there is also shortages and all manufacturers are going through that. So, but the question that someone said was, what caused the plate separation on the machine? Because that's a real common thing across the country right now, actually, is people finding those ice machines that have plate separation. And there's got to be something in the manufacturing or something like that, because it's happening everywhere. And I was thinking about something last night, because in my comments, have you heard about the plate separation issues, Adrian?
As far as Hoshizaki, I haven't worked on those in years.
Okay. So I honestly haven't seen a lot of plate separation myself. I've seen 2 or 3 of them in the last couple of years. Not, I don't consider that to be a lot, but I was sitting here thinking last night, because I'm reading in my comments and it's like 50-50. People are like, I've never seen plate separation. There was, let's say, 50 comments saying they've never seen it. And then there was 50 comments saying they have seen it. What I was thinking about last night, I was like, why is it that there's still 50 comments in there and you know, that have never seen it? Well, I guess I can't answer that. But the point I was trying to make was, you know, I communicate with people on a broader scale. Like I communicate with people all across the country because of social media. And so I'm hearing about it more because I'm hearing from people all over the place, you know? So maybe it's not as big of a problem as I think, but I'm just hearing it from a lot of people. So the next question that I had on here was, forgive me, you didn't put your name, so I didn't put your name on this, but someone asked if they needed, they're converting a system to 448A. So I'm assuming they're talking about a walk-in freezer or walk-in cooler. And they were saying that they were curious if they had to change the expansion valve. So when it comes to 448A, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you guys to lean on the manufacturer of the compressor, the manufacturer of the refrigerant, read all their documentation on retrofits, and go from there. Okay. Don't just trust my word when I tell you about retrofits. But what I'm going to say is every one of those manufacturers is going to tell you whatever they need to tell you to protect their equipment. Okay. But the refrigerant manufacturer is going to tell you something different. The refrigerant manufacturer is there to market their refrigerant. They want the refrigerant to be easier to use, faster to use, and they don't want you to have to hassle with any of the BS that they consider to be frustrating or hard work. Okay. So they're going to tell you everything. So when you look at a refrigerant manufacturer's technical documentation, of course, right on the front of it, it's going to say no need to change oil. That's not with 448A, but I'm just talking about in general retrofit refrigerants. It's going to say no need to change oil, no need to change expansion valves. We did this, we did that. But if you go to the back, the bottom or the back of those sheets down in fine print, it'll typically say something like, when it comes to the alternatives for R22 that they say you don't need to change oil, they'll say, you know, if long line set conditions exist, oil changes are best. If high pressure drop conditions exist, oil changes are best. They're basically covering their butt because in certain situations, you don't need to do an oil change. But when I look at something like that, what that tells me is go ahead and do an oil change, because if they've got it in the fine print, they're trying to cover their butt. So that way you just do it right. If you ran into any of the retrofit refrigerants, you've been using any of those?
The only one we had to worry about was R22, to be honest. We haven't done anything for 404 yet. It hasn't, I guess, hit us.
Yeah.
So like for R22, we tried a few of them, and I learned really quick that the whole drop-in term, people were taking it a little too literal.
Yes.
And just trying to mix or just put it in and not worry about the oil. And that was a discussion actually was referring to when I said I've talked to older techs recently, and I'm like, oh yeah, we were talking about, I was curious as to what they were using for R22, and they were using 407C, and I'm like, okay, that's the one that I'm on right now that we're trying out. And I was like, yeah, it's cool and all, just got to do that oil change. And then he looked at me, he was like confused for a second. He's like, nah, you don't have to do that. I've never done it. Everything works, and you're good. And I was like, well, it's not what you're supposed to do, but okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? Again, if it works for you, whoever's watching it, so be it. I mean, it is what it is. But I have employees, and I have to make whatever I do as easy as possible for everybody, because the last thing you want to do as an employer is do things that are complicated, making it really difficult. So when we make decisions, we typically make decisions to make it as easy as possible for our employees and to cover our butt. So for me, this last summer was the first time I used any retrofit refrigerants. And honestly, I didn't have good experiences with them. So I'm probably going back to R22. My customers are okay with that. They're like, it is what it is. You know, I don't really give them a choice per se, but you know, this last summer, everything that I put 407C in, if it had a TXV, it did fine. But if it was fixed orifice, like carrier package units that have the fixed orifice metering devices, when it got above 110 degrees, those units started blowing fuses left and right. The current went up like crazy on them. We had to put misters on them to bring it down, and we charged them correctly using target superheat. Everything was on point, and we just ran into nothing but problems with fixed orifice metering devices. So that's just my experience, but maybe Adrian doesn't have the same experience. So I'm not necessarily bashing the refrigerant. I'm just saying use the knowledge and the skills that you have. Read the installation instructions, and don't just read the instructions from the refrigerant manufacturer. Lean on the compressor manufacturer, lean on the expansion valve manufacturer, and see what they have to say about it too. You know, and that's honestly, I am not the best service technician out there, and I'm pretty sure Adrian will say the same thing. It's just about wanting to be the best and trying to be the best, but also understanding that you're never going to be perfect. You know, you're always going to make mistakes. So
No, and it's always about, like, like you said, reading up, get the manuals for everything. I had a couple of them that recommended 407C, so that's why we tried it out, like from Copeland and stuff.
Mhm.
And then you just read as much as you can, research after work, or
Yeah.
if you're trying to figure out something for your customer, research it, do all that. As far as like the carrier units, we haven't run into, or we don't have any more that are R22. So all the
Got it.
carrier ones that I've seen are 410.
Yeah.
The ones that still have R22 tend to be the trains
Okay.
around here. So those are the
You
ones
know,
that we converted.
I still have more R22 units than I have 410A units.
Oh,
Like,
really?
it's so difficult to change equipment here. It's
Oh,
so
that's
difficult.
right. Yeah,
and
that's right.
and I'm gonna be honest too. Like, you know, you don't necessarily. I mean, you technically have to pull permits, but not everybody pulls permits. But it's just a nightmare. It's a nightmare going through the permitting process. I mean, they want basically the restaurant owner's firstborn. They want everything to pull a permit. There was
Well,
a little Mexican restaurant that a friend of mine called me during the lockdowns and all that stuff. He called me on the phone. He's like, "Hey man," he's like, "I want to run something by you." And his company did air conditioning and they're just getting into refrigeration. So he'd call me with questions. And he goes, "We've got this little Mexican restaurant. They needed a new walk-in cooler. They sold them all new retrofit equipment. So new evaporator, new line set, new condenser on the roof." Well, they went to go pull permits. And what happened was the city got involved, the city of San Bernardino, and they basically came into the restaurant and they made the restaurant bring everything in the restaurant up to code. I'm talking, in order to get the permit signed off for the walk-in cooler, they had to bring their fire sprinkler system up to code, which that one was arguably should have been done anyways. But they literally made them change the FRP covering on the walls because it was yellow. Like, they
oh yeah.
went and made them retile in the restaurant. Like, this is all to get signed off on their walk-in cooler to work. The guy told me that after whatever my friend's quote was to change the walk-in cooler, the restaurant had to spend like an extra 30 grand in repairs to be able to get the permit signed off on. Like, that's what's kind of sad. That's a bit
Yeah,
silly, you know?
and I don't think I guess they're not as strict here. Like, we pull permits all the time. It's not a big deal. We get them done
Yeah.
in a relatively quick time. And yeah, like for the most part, they'll opt to get a new equipment most of the
Yeah.
time, especially for the older stuff. But I've heard and seen you talk about how hard it is over there.
Yeah. It's a nut. I mean, even residential, it's nuts. For everybody that's wondering too, anybody new that's come in here, this is Adrian from Reliable HVACR. I know I don't have the names up. I typically don't put those up on StreamYard. I probably should, but whatever. But yeah, Adrian is a friend of mine, and I thought I'd have him on tonight. So I'm going to try to do this a little bit more. Samuel mentioned, oh, this is something interesting, and Adrian could probably talk about this too. Samuel mentioned that he's amazed in my videos. He notices that a good majority of the problems that I run into could have been prevented. And also a good majority of them could have been prevented by doing routine maintenance on the equipment. And I would say, I would agree with that statement 110%. A good majority of the problems that I run into on a day-to-day basis are totally preventable. And if they did more routine maintenance, they definitely could have caught a lot of problems. You ran into that too, Adrian?
It's something we're trying to push more lately. Like, we do have some maintenance like agreements and stuff, and the ones that do it, they get it. They don't want their equipment down. They don't want all these expensive repairs that could have been prevented just by simple maintenance. It could be cleaning the coils,
Yeah.
checking the belts, really dumb things that you get called for on the weekends. It could have been prevented, like, honestly, like 90% of the time. And
Right.
even if we're there for something, like if I'm checking the ACs or whatnot, I'll keep an ear out, or I'll keep an eye out for different things that we see on the roof. Some of the refrigeration equipment, I'll go ahead and take a look at it. It might not be in the contract, but I'll take a look at it. Let them know if there's anything that needs to be taken care of. You go through the store, you might want to walk through the walk-ins. You're there,
I
and if
do
you
the
can
exact
prevent
same thing.
something,
Yeah. And I
yeah,
tell all my guys to do it too. So
because you don't want to get called on the weekend. So
nope. I'm trying to prevent those service calls. Especially it has started to happen more so because a good majority of my customers do not do routine maintenance anymore. So at all. And so with those ones, anytime I'm in their facility with their permission, I will go through, I'll just do a walk around on the roof and I'll do a walk around downstairs. Ironically, I get permission from the corporate office to do that. But it's like a person in the corporate office, like a facilities director, the guy that's actually I work for technically, because I technically don't work for the restaurants. I work for the corporate office. And oftentimes the facilities director, like he wants to do routine maintenance. He gets it because he sees this, but it's the higher ups that don't want it because those numbers are scary, you know? So he'll tell me like, when you're on site, go look around. Yeah, please do walk around. Take 20 minutes. I don't care. Walk around the restaurant, find problems. And we do that all the time. Like, and for a good majority of my restaurants, we don't do any routine maintenance, but yet I find problems all the time when we're on site doing other things. And then we just bring it up and we generate service calls. Boom, boom, boom. Not being shady one bit at all. So
no, you're being honest. You're giving them a heads up.
Yeah.
And like you said, for the most part, you can generate a whole bunch more work just doing that, just walking around, kind of keeping an eye out. And then like I put everything in writing. I'll take pictures. I do all that stuff and let them know. And around here, a lot of the store managers are for it, but it's always those higher ups that have the last say in it. And, you know, they always talk about budget and stuff like that. And I'm like, all right, eventually, you know, a compressor gives out here or there. That's going to end up costing more, but you know, you let the customer decide.
Yep. I put it all in the customer's hands. And see, people say that because, again, maybe I don't give enough context when I make videos, but people will comment all the time, you know, you sure change a lot of equipment. And it's like, okay, first off, you know, and then their argument will usually be, you just want to sell stuff. Well, actually, if you know anything about my business model, I actually don't get to sell very much at all, because I work for these big, giant commercial customers that actually buy all their own equipment. So all I'm there is just passing information along and they're making decisions on what they want to do. So throw that out the door, you know. But the next thing is even if I was selling equipment, I'm not that type of person. This is all in the customer's hands. I give the customers a big picture quote and they choose whether or not they want to do it. That's pretty much how it is. You know, sometimes they say, no, do we have to do all this stuff? And I'm like, no, not necessarily. I mean, it's just the compressor is bad. Why do you have an extra 6 hours in this quote? Well, when the compressor is installed and started back up, I'm going to try to find out why it went bad. Oh, we don't need you to do that. Okay, cool. Right on. Here's your quote. 8 hours to change the compressor and I'm out. You know,
just give them the options. You know, they make their decision.
Yep. So when it comes to YouTube and, you know, making content that you're doing, and I think I know the answer to this, but does that make you hungry to learn more? Like, do you ever get humbled in the comments when people teach you something, you know, like, hey, you know what, you did that a little bit wrong. You should have looked at this. Like, do you get those kind of comments too?
I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
It happens to everybody. And
right.
As long as it's in good taste, that's fine. I like to see that in the comments where they're like, they know more about something than I do.
Yeah.
So I have to tell people, like, we don't see a lot of stuff or a lot of the newer stuff here. I ran into a walk-in freezer like last year, and I had never seen a scroll compressor on a walk-in freezer before.
Okay.
We have a lot of older equipment. We never had one of those. And I had at the time I didn't know what it was. And I even had that in the video, and I got tons of answers in the comments that it was like the liquid injector.
The DTC
on the scroll.
valve. Yep.
And I had no clue. Right. People in the comments left me nice, you know, paragraphs about what it was. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to go research it and I'll find out more, learn on my own time. And, you know, it's stuff like that the YouTube part of it, the Instagram, like wherever I post, that's the benefit to me, you know, is like I post to help and all that. I try to talk to everybody who comments or messages me. But if I learn something, you know, that's awesome. And definitely, you know, I go online and research everything I can. So
same. I mean,
it's a big help when people are watching and they know something that you don't. I'm all for it.
I've been humbled so many times and learned so much from the comments, people reaching out to me. And like Adrian said too, you know, of course, be courteous, right? You don't got to be a jerk, but even from the jerks, I'll play with them sometimes too, because I'll interact with them and go back and forth with them just playing dumb. You're like, how can I get better and all this different stuff. I have some pretty funny stories about those, but I mean, I learn stuff from everybody, right? So I love learning. That's something as I'm getting older, I'm having more fun when I find out I'm wrong, because it's another opportunity to learn something new. So I'm down for it all. You know, I remember the first time I saw a DTC valve or a liquid injection on the side of a scroll too. I was like, what is that? I said the same thing you did. So we've all been there. I think one of these we all have a defense mechanism, I think, a little bit in us, where we don't want to show that we don't understand things. You know, I have pride, you know, and sometimes, like, especially when I first started making content, like I used to edit out the mistakes. And then I started to feel really sick to myself because I'm like, that's not real. I actually screwed that up, you know? So I started leaving that stuff in, and it's actually more satisfying to show people that I'm real. And, you know, I make mistakes just like everybody else, and I have to learn just like everybody else too.
Yeah, and I think I was like that too when I started. I mean, I didn't intend to show too much. I didn't intend to try and explain everything. I just kind of started posting. And after a while, I was like, you know what? You know, leave the mistakes in, leave all that stuff in, because in the long run, I want to show what it is or what it's like to be out in the field and stuff like that. And once I started posting more of that and stopped cutting out things or editing or whatever, I got more praise, and I got people that love that stuff. So that's what they're looking for. They want to see, you know, where did you mess up, where they can, you know, learn from that.
Yeah, 100%. Let's see if I can pull this up real quick. Invalid file type. I'm going to share something really quick because someone had asked me a question before. So let me try to figure the screen share thing out. And window. And one time I did this and I shared a bunch of stuff I shouldn't have shared. So let's see if I do this. Okay. So someone had asked me a question about exhaust fan wiring package that I did, like a short, like Instagram reel, Facebook, whatever thing on. And I showed the typical operation of a hood control system in my area. Okay. Understand something. The way that you set up a hood control system when it comes to the fire shutdown and different things like that changes from different city to municipality to fire marshal. I mean, so, and it all depends on the hood manufacturer. There's a lot of variables. Okay. So just because my systems operate like this doesn't mean that everybody else's are going to operate. So when I showed this, it was a couple weeks ago. There was like 4 motor starters and like 4 relays. And I had a couple switches, and it was just the way that they operated. You know, when you turned on power, this happened, and there was a fire relay in there. And someone had asked me a question, what the heck does the fire relay do? So in this situation, if you look at the schematic, what the fire relay is doing is down right here where it says hood. Okay, that's the main power switch. When power comes through that, notice that it goes up and it goes through a normally closed contact on the fire relay, and it energizes the air conditioners. Now, when it says air conditioner in that particular building, what it actually is it's the makeup air units, okay? Because we get our makeup air at this particular restaurant from the air conditioners, okay? They don't have a standalone makeup air unit. So in this situation, why is the fire relay there? Well, if you look up here, we have a normally open fire contact, okay? So when this unit goes into fire shutdown, this contact right here that's normally closed opens and shuts down the makeup air for the building. And this one closes and energizes. Well, if you were to energize the fire relay, it would actually manually turn everything on. So that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But just to answer that guy's question, that's what the fire relay does, is it just lets the air conditioner interlock relay basically turn on. So, all right. So that's that question. I wanted to talk about this. So someone in my comments, and I'm curious what you have to say about this too, Adrian. So someone in my comments recently, I had a video a while back where I went to a air conditioner repair and it had a horrible electrical service ran to it. The electrician was supposed to fix it. It was a disaster, and they left all their trash on the roof, and I ended up having to redo it. They ruined like a $1,200 disconnect switch in the air conditioner because they stripped out the giant lugs on it. It was like a giant Linux package unit. They stripped out the lugs. Actually, this guy right here, bam, So it was this right here. It's a disconnect switch. And on the bottom
Okay.
right here, this lug, they stripped out the screw that tightens to the wire. And I couldn't find a lug, so I had to change it. But anyways, the question was, the person said, I hope that you took pictures of everything, gave it the restaurant, and then told the restaurant to sue the previous contractor. And I got a million questions like that. Okay. So what did I do? I've answered this question so many times, and I'm going to answer it in a live format. I don't get involved in any of that drama. Okay, so let me tell you, in the past, I've gotten involved in that, and I'm going to tell you exactly what happens, and it's the worst case scenario. I get involved and I say, this contractor did a bad job of doing what he was doing, right? Then the restaurant says, well, that's good. I'm going to make him pay your bill. So then when I go to give my bill to the restaurant doesn't pay it. And I'm like, hey, when are you going to pay the bill? Well, we're waiting for that other contractor to pay it. Well, but I need you to pay it. Well, no, we're waiting for him to pay it because he messed it up. And then that contractor says, well, I didn't mess it up. So I learned quickly, don't do any of that crap. All I do is I went there for a service call. The restaurant says, what was wrong with it? I said, had a bad disconnect switch and I had to fix the electrical wiring because it was messed up. Well, we just had the electrician here. I don't know what to tell you. I just had to fix this stuff, and I'm not going to lie to them. I'm going to give them just what they need to know. And, I'm not going to get involved. Do you guys ever run into any weird stuff like that?
Honestly, all the time.
Yeah.
It's like if you tell them everything, like if you go into detail, if you try to put the blame on somebody and go down that route, you kind of open up a can of worms there.
100%.
And it never works out. So like when I was younger, yeah, I used to try and do stuff like that. Like, oh, like this company did this or that company did that, or what were they thinking, this and that. And in all honesty, some managers don't want to hear it either.
Yep.
And they're going to think that that's unprofessional. And they're going to be like, why are you, talking so much about this other company, or why are you talking down? We called you to fix it or whatever. So most of the time you can document stuff if you need to, take pictures or whatever, and not necessarily have to, tell the manager everything. Just tell them what you found, try and give them options, get it going for them.
I take pictures, but again, I just don't connect the dots for them. That's what I don't do. I'll take pictures. They say, can you show me what happened? I'll be like, here's a picture. This was bad. Well, how did that go bad? It's hard to say, I'm not connecting the dots to the pointing fingers. That's what I try not to do.
Yeah, because some of them will come behind you and kind of watch you, or they'll walk in when you're working on something, like in a walk-in cooler or something, and then they see something and they're like, how did that happen, or who did that, or whatnot, and then you kind of shrug it off. You're like, I don't know, like we can get it going for you, and just try to just sell them what you're doing and not worry so much about the previous company.
And I'm not going to lie. And if they ask me a direct question, I'm going to answer it. But I just try to be as neutral as possible. Like, I think it was Jason Johnson said it earlier. Just try to be as neutral as possible. Yeah, that's exactly it. I'm here to fix this. I know that this was probably caused by someone else, but I'm just not getting involved in that drama. Like, just I'm here to fix it. You want me to fix it? It's cool.
Yeah, same here. Like if they ask, I'll try and answer as best as I can. But for the most part, like he said, be neutral. Do the job that you were called out there for, and I don't know, just I wouldn't worry about the previous person or anything like that.
No, and another thing that I've learned too is pointing fingers. It just doesn't work. It doesn't come back to work good for you in the end. And also,
never.
Talking crap on people, like why talk crap on people? Like, life is really too short, and there's too much craziness going on in the world to be worried about what someone says, or you wanting to prove yourself better than anybody. Just let all that stuff go. Just be you. Fix what you gotta fix.
You think it makes you look better or sound better, but it doesn't come off that way at all.
No. I lost my train of thought, but yeah, anyways, it's all good. So when it comes to obviously the content creation and stuff, like, are you getting overwhelmed with how much time you spend on the content creation?
Yes and no. I mean, at the beginning, I think I was putting way too much time into it, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it was different. Right now, I'm trying to make it. I try to block it off to where it's like I spend a certain amount of time doing that, and then, you know, have time with my family, time for myself, you know, too,
Yeah.
and do other things. Because if when you get into the whole content creation thing, it can be overwhelming. And me myself, when I do my videos, I watch them like 100 times. I want to make sure I don't mess anything up. Make sure everything looks good, sounds good, and I don't know. I'm not a super like perfectionist, but I have to watch it so many times and make sure it's good.
Yeah. Joe asks, anyone got plans for a West Coast HVAC symposium? That would be so awesome. You know, actually, Brian said this a long time ago. Brian Orr from HVAC School. He's the founder of the HVACR Training Symposium and HVAC School and all that stuff. But when Brian first started the symposium and after the first one, he actually said that he thinks it would be cool if other people did them across the country too. And I definitely think that'd be cool. But if you guys could only, I don't even think anybody really knows how much work goes into one of those events. Like, it's amazing that Brian can pull that off. He has an amazing team behind him, and there's a lot of work that goes into one of those training events. So I'm down to go to one on the West Coast, but I'm not down to do it.
Oh,
I need
I can
someone else to do it.
imagine.
I'll help, but yeah.
I can imagine. I don't know how the whole AHR thing goes either. Like that's such a big event too. And even talking to Ben, I talked to him about the award show because I was like, "How stressed out are you? How you
Yeah.
know all that?" And man, that like even that kind of event, they're new, but they're it's bigger every year, and it's crazy the amount of work that goes into that. I would love to go to the symposium. I had thought about it. Um, I'm right in the middle though. I'm in Texas, so either
Yeah.
way, I got to go. It's kind of a far
Well,
trip, but that one seems a good one to go to because you'll get to enjoy it and see all the speakers and everything.
yeah, the symposium definitely is awesome. I've been to two of them, I think. It is really cool. It's definitely worth it. I encourage everybody to go to one at least. For me, it's just hard though, because I still run a business and I have employees, and it's hard for me to get away from work. Like for
Yeah.
AHR, I was gone for a week. And then for the symposium, I would be gone for at least 4 days. And they were literally weeks apart. So it was hard for me to get the time. And this year I just had to make a decision. Now, in the previous years, I've done it where I did them both, but I just am dead for weeks after. I'm exhausted. So it's like, I'm having to learn how to find my piece too, and how to try to find this balance between social media and I don't even think we fully understand the implications of social media and the downside and the way, like, my wife is always, she's like, I joke with her, but she's like into all these weird, I call it voodoo vegan crap. But the reason why I call it voodoo vegan crap is because she eats kind of a vegan diet, and she's into all the essential oils and all that stuff. And I was used to make fun of her because she's into all that crap, until one day she like put lavender on my wrist, and then like it helped me fall asleep. And I'm like, oh, that does work. And all these weird things, but she's always telling me that, I got to find the happiness and whatever. And but anyways, yeah, I'm losing my train of thought on that one again too. But so we talked about the crappy contractors and, what do we do about that? I try not to get too involved in it. Oh, this is another great comment. Marcus had made a great comment that as a young guy entering the trade, he was very surprised with how important the details are when it comes to the work that we do. And there's a lot of truth in that statement. And I don't think that, I don't want to blame every school, but I'm just going to say schools in general are doing a good job at letting these kids know how important these details are. And also as the trade evolves and the higher efficient equipment comes out, you're starting to learn that these details really do matter. And yeah, while in the past we could get away without pulling a perfect vacuum, and we could get away without, making sure that, it's charged absolutely right. But like with this new equipment, like you got to be spot on. And the customers, I don't know if you've experienced this, Adrian, but I've experienced that the customers are a lot less forgiving now than they were for me 20 years ago. Like you'll get fired from a customer in a heartbeat, for things that I did in my beginning that I got away with, like, and I made it right, but still I made mistakes. And like, people will fire you for that in an instant now,
Yeah, you definitely have to worry about that. more now. I mean, I try to keep our callbacks like to a minimum because word gets out really quick. And a lot of the, the new customers we get, you hear all these stories about like why they fired the previous one, and they catch on quick. Like,
Yeah.
companies that go out there and add Freon all the time, or companies that blow things up. I hear about that stuff, and they talk. So if you mess up, you got to worry about that more. I think more so now, because reputation is like a big thing. So
Yep.
try to keep
Reputation.
try to keep the callbacks to a
Yeah.
minimum, and take care of your customer.
Yeah, keeping the callbacks to a minimum. I can't stress enough how important it is to not have callbacks. And of course you're always going to have something, but man,
Just take
you
a few
don't
more minutes to
yeah.
check this or that, or take a walk around after you fix something. Take those extra few minutes to look around and make sure you did everything right.
I'm a nut
Um,
and I know I have problems, but I've literally gone back up onto a roof 2-3 times to make sure I turned a disconnect on. Like I just can't, because I've done it so many times where I left it off that I'll get in my van and I'm like, wait a minute, I was talking on the phone. Did I actually see that? No, I know I went up there and turned it on, and then I'll go back and check again. It's like, why? It's on, okay, but I've done it. I'm a nut. Same thing. Like I carry, and this is probably some undiagnosed crap, but I carry 2 keys for my van in my pocket because I'm sick of getting locked out of my van. So I have a key in each pocket all the time. And so it's things like that. And like, I have to hear the horn chirp, even though I know I locked it. I have to hear the horn chirp. Like I got to make sure, I'm just a nut about that stuff because I'm afraid. How many times have you left your tool bag somewhere, Adrian?
it's happened a few times, and the
Yeah.
last time that it happened, it got stolen within like 15 minutes. So I
And
learned real
yeah,
quick not to do that again.
yeah, that is one, man. There's nothing worse because I cover a big area, probably I don't even know mileage, probably 300-mile range, in different directions or whatever. And it's not
Yeah.
regularly that I bounce to each end. It's just that I have a certain area I work within, but then if I do work for these really big customers, they're like, we need you to take these 3 stores out in the boonies too, and like these 2 stores over here. So I only go there for certain customers, but there's times that I'll leave something an hour and a half, 2 hours away from my house. It's happened so many times, probably 3 times maybe in my career, but it's happened enough that I actually keep spare tools in my van. I have a toolbox that has pretty much everything I need for the most part, adjustable wrenches, service wrenches, Allen wrenches, just the basic stuff, an extra meter, because, oh my gosh, nothing worse than leaving a tool bag.
Yeah, I kind of done that too. Like I have my bags. I have a couple of bags on my van, and then anything whenever I upgrade a tool or something like that, I put the other tool in a toolbox just in
Yeah.
case. And then I have another tool bag in my personal vehicle. Like, I don't know, I just have them spread out just in case.
Yeah. So Victor Flores says, any advice for first year apprentices? So I kind of have pretty generic advice that I give you, but I think it's pretty important. And it's, first off, when you're an apprentice, you're not too good to do anything. Okay. You're not too good to be the gopher, the guy that's going down to the van to get the tools, to get the torch, to get the whatever, because there's value in everything and you learn from everything. So if you become that gopher, the guy that, I send down to go, hey, go get my vacuum pump from my van. Okay. Well, what you can actually learn from that, before you start doing your own work, you start learning the things that I need when I do a job. Right. So I'm doing a compressor replacement and I send you down to get the torches. Well, what's the next step after I get done brazing the system up? The vacuum pump. So, hey, maybe grab the vacuum pump at the same time. Start recognizing that stuff. Start recognizing the patterns. You're going to become a better service technician. Another really good piece of advice, and I'll let Adrian talk on this one too, that I'll give to apprentices is, when you can, okay, ask as many questions as possible, but also understand that there's a time and place for questions. If I'm in the middle of brazing something, I'm going to say, hey, bud, we'll talk about this when I'm done. Okay. But ask those questions. And whenever you're on a roof, when you can, take as many pictures as possible. And why I say when you can, because sometimes you'll work on these sensitive locations where you're not allowed to take pictures, or a customer might have it in their fine print that there's no filming on their property, that kind of stuff. So always be cautious of that, but take pictures of stuff that you don't understand and that you're curious about, model numbers and serial numbers. And when you go home, start researching that stuff. You'll become a better technician just by learning. So do you have any advice for new apprentices, Adrian?
I think I give similar points that you just made, but
Yeah.
you got to be helpful. I mean, when you start, you're not going out there running calls yourself. So when you're with somebody, you know, like you said, make sure you're the one that helps them get their equipment down. Recognize, you know, the stuff that you're grabbing. You know, make sure you know what certain tools look like. You know, the names of them, because they're going to be asking you like to go grab you, you know, different things at different times during the call. And then when you're on the roof, go ahead and look at. I would look at schematics. Maybe take down some model numbers,
Mm-hmm.
and then look them up when you get out of work, stuff like that. And then I don't know, just when you work with somebody, you're trying to be as efficient as possible. So the worst thing is, you know, not knowing, like I said, the tools, or, you know, being upset if you're the one that has to go get them, get
Yeah.
down and go get them. So
I would say stay off the phone when you don't need to be on it too. When you're on the roof and you're working with something, especially for me, when I'm working with someone, there's nothing worse than when I'm trying to teach and I'm talking to them and I turn around and they're staring at their phone. It's like, why am I talking? You know, like, why am I trying to educate you as I'm working and you're back there staring? I haven't had that in many years, but that's happened in the past, you know? And it's like, hey, bud, you need to put down the phone, focus on work, you know? Let's listen, let's learn. You know, there's a time and place to pick up your phone and take pictures and different things like that. And obviously it's when, you know, you're not needed to do something else. I thought this comment was funny. HVAC boss wants to know who the Latino is. HVAC boss knows who the Latino is, but that is a reliable HVACR. That is Adrian. So that's funny though. You know, it's awesome too. This community, again, we talked about it at the beginning, but this community of people, you know, we see a lot of the same commenters in here, you know, they cross from platform to platform, and it's really neat to be able to be, you know, in connection with all these people. And, you know, like my best friends, Adam, Joe, and Bill, we met on the internet. You know, that's the weirdest thing, but that this has all afforded us the ability to meet and find people that are like-minded. And I think that's really important.
yeah,
You know, someone, one of our regular viewers and one of our friends on the Overtime show, Big Clive, he's actually like this giant YouTuber in the Isle of Man over in Europe or whatever. But really cool dude, really smart electronics guy, takes stuff apart and stuff. But he mentioned something one time, and he says that he thinks that a good majority of technically minded people that obsess about things and stuff like that all probably have some sort of what people might call like a disability or something like that, when it's not really a disability, but like autism or something like that, right? Because we all like tend to hyper focus on certain things. And I do find some truth in that statement. You know, I think that, you know, we all are very interested, and social media gives us the ability to communicate and connect with those people too, where we can find, you know, otherwise I never would have met Adrian. We never would have met before other than seeing each other on social media, you know, and interacting.
and that was cool, because like going to the whole AHR thing, which, like you said, I was trying to pick between that and the symposium, but I chose the AHR trip and the award show to do this year. And I got to see a lot of people that I actually see in the comments and stuff. And I thought that was cool. You know, we're no different than any other techs out there. We just post our work online for everybody to watch. But I saw them. I got to hang out with Rick a lot too. Angel, HVAC boss.
Yep.
And what's funny is, like I said, like around here, I tend to keep my mouth shut just when I talk to older guys, because, like, you know, they'll say something and I just want to be like, you know, that's not the right way to do it. But every time I get into that conversation, you know, they don't want to hear it. But online, you'll find other guys that are, you know, like you, where you're doing things and trying to get your best work done.
Yeah.
And that's where it's cool online, where you see other guys that do stuff like that and are kind of like-minded.
The comments right now are hilarious. I'm like reading through the comments right now. What is it, Bill? Someone, he said, someone tell Latino Ray Charles the camera's over here, because the perspective where you're looking.
Yeah. I don't
Bill
have
the
room. My
dumbass.
camera's over here.
That's funny. Oh, that makes me laugh. I get it though too. It's all too familiar. I do the same thing because I got the comments over here. Like I'm looking, and that's what we're doing. That's why he's doing that, because he's looking at the comments, watching what's going on the screen, or looking at me, but the camera's coming from the other angle. So look at, we're dumb HVAC guys. Okay. We don't know how to do this crap. We're still all learning. Oh man. It's funny, but seriously, the comments are awesome. It is great. There was another comment here from someone. Who did it say? Oh, someone said, hey Chris, how do I get a hat? If you're interested in my hats, you can go to my website, hvacrvideos.com. Are you selling or distributing merch, Adrian?
I have a few shirts up.
Do you have somewhere where they can go to find that information?
ReliableHVACR.net.
There you go. ReliableHVACR.net. I imagine that you probably have all your social links there too, right? So they can find all your places that you're at.
Yeah, or they just search Reliable HVACR basically on any platform. I'm trying to be out, as many as I can.
I find that funny too. Someone came up to me at AHR and they were like, do you have a business card? And if you're watching, no offense meant to anything, but I was like, no, I don't have a business card. And they're like, well, do you have one of those digital business cards? And I was like, no. I was like, my experience is like, I thought about getting a digital business card, but then someone has to have the NFC or whatever turned on their phone, and half the people don't. It's just a whole process. I watch people fumble through it. So I'm like, it's just not for me. To each their own, right? And he's like, well, how do I find you? And I was like, honestly, dude, just search HVACR videos, like anywhere. Just I own that term. So anywhere, HVACR videos, you'll find it. That's my easiest business card, So as long as you make your name, like even Adrian too, it's everybody knows Reliable HVACR, so that's the easiest way to find them. Just look for it, all the social media platforms. So let's get to the chat, see if we're missing out on anything. I'm not seeing anything there. Reading through here. Let's see. Ike says that he came across someone at a no heating call that actually watched my videos and got them in the Discord. That's funny how small this world is. It is kind of interesting running into people. So have you ran into anybody? Has anybody recognized you yet?
Happened twice today.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, but yeah, I've been super surprised at how many local guys have found me on there, and they're like, hey, I'm from like the next city over, or something like that. And then like today somebody sent a picture of my van. I was on the roof and they're like, hey, is this you? And I'm like, yeah, that is. Where are you?
Yeah.
And then one of the workers, he was the manager. It's like, hey, I watched all your videos and this and that. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotta be that's why you got to be careful with what you post. But
100%.
Yeah.
I'm going to say right now that and I said something and I kind of got attacked for this, but I said that I wouldn't let my employees film videos. Okay. And people were like, why wouldn't you do that? People need to learn this. And I hear the complaints. I get it. Okay. The reason why I wouldn't let my employees film videos is because of the locations that I work in. And a lot of people don't even realize how difficult it is. I have permission to film, right? But part of my permission is that I don't reveal where I'm at. And if you work in these restaurants, their name is on everything in the restaurants. Like every box of food in the walk-in cooler has their names on it. Like I have to go through a lot to keep the location sensitive. So that's why I don't let people film, because the restaurants, it's a nightmare to get approval to film in these restaurants. So when you get approval, you got to be very careful about it. So it's not that I don't want people in my company to start filming. It's just, it's a pain in the butt. So,
and it's hard. Even myself doing this for a while, I still find myself trying to crop out or cut out or blur something, because like you said, their name's on everything, and it's very easy for it to slip by.
Chipmunk says this customer's a jerk, and then next day the customer said, you called me what? Exactly. Because I have customers that watch my videos too, so it's like, no, again, it goes back to just being kind and courteous. Now people, they give me pushback every once in a while because they're like, dude, if I was your customer and you talked about me like that, I'd fire you. And what they're complaining about is that I'm on the roof and it's Saturday and it's really late. And I'm saying, man, it sucks that I'm here tonight. This could have been avoided had they done a maintenance. I'm being honest. I'm not being a jerk. I'm just stating the facts, this could have been prevented. I tell them the same thing. Even when I come in, it's like, you guys know that this overtime call that's costing a lot of money could have totally been prevented had you just shut the walk-in cooler door, or had you told me that it stopped working yesterday, So I'm not a jerk to them, but I try to be as courteous as possible. So right on. Well, I think it's time we about wrap this up. we're getting to my hour timeline. So Adrian, again, I want to say thanks so much for coming on here, bud. This has been really cool.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, definitely go check out Adrian's information, reliablehvacr.net, you said?
Oh yeah, for shirts or
reliablehvacr.net, and then
anything like that.
all his social media platforms, Reliable HVACR, Instagram, YouTube, all that good stuff. And I'm going to cue up the outro music, and then Adrian, just stay tight, and we will see if I can do this right, and see if I can do that, and hit that.